Game here from round number one. This is Chakki versus Leoric. And to sort of set the stage here, Chakki has a 120 card for 120 card identical list to Amnesiac. So he's running the same thing. Leoric actually has quite a similar list to WTY Bill. He's got the N'Zoth Paladin, he's got the Jade Druid. He does have a couple differences in the fact that he has Mage in that lineup, but it's very similar in the fact that it looks like he's trying to go more control-y than the control.
Yeah, and that more control-y than the control decks seems to be the mark here for Americas. Again, with players taking that shift towards the slower choices, typically the players who have more greedy choices, more powerful and slower cards towards the end game end up with advantages in those situations. And that's the kind of advantage that Leoric's going to need, because he's going up against one of the game's most storied players right now.
Yeah. A lot of people tout him as being one of the best players in the world. I got a chance to look at win rates for players leading into the playoffs, and Chakki's ladder win rates at high MMR are head and shoulders above the rest of the field. He consistently maintains across thousands of games 65% plus win rates in most of his classes, which is absolutely incredible. When you look at the average player in the Americas playoffs, float around 55 to 58%. So
yeah,
that's just insane.
He's actually 70% or better with 4 out of his 5 most played archetypes in this season.
In this season, yeah. So that's impressive stuff. And right now he's playing Quest Warrior, which is his most played deck throughout the Ungoro meta. But talking about Leoric, this guy's he's a grinder. You know, he's a player that you'll consistently see in the top 100. He's been around for a couple years. I personally have played against him on ladder a ton of times, especially towards the end of the season. So he's definitely not a player that you can sleep on, and a player that's worked hard to get where he is.
Certainly. This isn't his first rodeo here on the Hearthstone Championship Tour either. He actually qualified back in winter and springs of 2016 and was qualified for winters of this year as well.
So it's his 4th rodeo?
Yeah, 4th rodeo. I was talking with Firebat backstage also about Leoric. Said he's a player towards the end of the season he often sees competing in the high legend ranks.
Yeah, it just grinds out the last couple days. I'll begin in this match. It is a Taunt Warrior mirror match, and this is all about pretty much completing the quest first. If you complete the quest first, you basically are trading nothing for your opponent's minions.
Yeah, that's right.
Or your opponent's face health. So, you know, this is sort of a race to complete the quest, and that's about it. Unlike the Control Warrior days of old, this matchup rarely, if ever, goes to fatigue.
Yeah, the only real difference between these two players' decks as well is where tech choices are concerned. Chakki's chosen to bring 1 copy of Brawl and 1 copy of Harrison Jones, where Leoric he's got 2 copies of Brawl. That second copy of Brawl can sometimes be a liability in this matchup, where since the minions are very health efficient and very attack inefficient, you'll oftentimes have your own minion contesting your opponents. So it makes it difficult to brawl in those situations because of the likelihood that you simply give up too much value of one of your own minions in this matchup. We actually saw that happen over the European playoff weekend, where 2 copies of Brawl and 2 Sleep with the Fishes found their way into a player's hand, and they were stuck there the entire game.
Yeah, it's also not a card that either helps you complete your quest or helps you draw cards towards completing your quest. So
Curator, on the other hand, it's a card that does all those things that
it does everything.
Yeah,
goes towards your quest, also helps you pick up minions that also go towards your quest.
Yeah, and these are the kinds of board states that you can see with this matchup, where a lot of board tension is built. It's difficult to make efficient attacks, and situations like this make it tough to find an edge. This is where completing that quest way ahead of time gives you that big edge, as it allows you to start delivering 8 damage, and that either will chip away at your opponent's board or start to make headway on the life total.
Chakki looks like he's going to look for a way to get through this board here. Actually, Curator might just be a solid play here. He's got 8 cards in hand. He's only going to draw a Primordial Drake, since he's already played the Direhorn Hatchling, which is the only other beast.
He could also be looking.
He's going to go for the board clear.
Yeah, I like this multi-turn setup from Chakki, because what he's trying to do is put that Direhorn Matriarch into the deck, and then use Curator to find that 6/9 taunt afterwards. Not only that, but it allows him to use his 2 Sleep with the Fishes, and the Tar Creeper that he drew off Acolyte also helps him make progress on the quest as well. So this was the absolute perfect turn for Chakki. He got to use 2 cards that are typically dead, he got to clear down his opponent's board very efficiently, and he got to set up a better Curator turn.
Very nicely done. Leoric is sitting on a lot of not that valuable resources at the moment. He does have a few taunts, but Primordial Drake, not that great right now. This board doesn't look like a good Primordial Drake board, especially since that Bloodhoof Brave is just going to get damaged, and Leoric's going to find a use for that first brawl and see what can come of it.
One of the rare times that happens.
Yeah, but it's not even that great of a brawl, to be honest, because he's not getting any further towards that quest progress. So he's just delaying those turns, and so now the more turns he delays, if Chakki is able to complete the quest this turn, that Primordial Drake is going to be susceptible to the Ragnaros hero power.
That's right. It's also really important that this Alley Armorsmith lived for Chakki, where turn after turn, that thing doesn't die. That's just extra armor he gets. That is something else that is very relevant to the matchup. If you can build a large enough armor total when the resources are all in the dust because they've just been ground into it, one after another, cards matching up, that extra armor allows you to race your opponent with the quest progress you've made. So the Alley Armorsmith living here is a big thing to look at. Leoric needs to start handling this board state.
Yeah, so it looks like Chakki is 5 out of 7 for the quest, so just needs 2 more taunt minions.
I believe Leoric was 3 out of 7 heading into his turn.
So quite a bit behind. He doesn't even have that much of a resource advantage also, considering Chakki just was able to draw that Direhorn Matriarch with the Curator. He's pretty much caught up, especially when you consider the minions have so much additional value as we move forward. Can't complete the quest this turn.
It's getting awfully close.
But this is all about setting up for the best possible turn for next turn to be able to use the Soul Frost and use that Ragnaros hero power.
What now?
Yeah, it looks like a strong Primordial Drake to me.
Makes sense to me.
Makes sense to me. Keeps Curator around, gets a 4/8. You just saw an Execute as well. So Leoric really has his work cut out for him, and this is where the turns will start to get tough. Drawing the Brawl early on, drawing Execute, the Whirlwind, just a lot of cards, again, that don't make quest progress. It can be such a big liability. Chakki is likely to take a very large lead in the coming turns simply because he will have that resource online so early.
Throw out the Armorsmith there.
That's a nod to the quest.
It is a nod to the, but also, yeah, I guess so.
He needs that 1/4 to get hit by.
Yeah, you're right. I was thinking Execute, but I mean, he knows that Direhorn Matriarch is in the hand, which is a little bit more threatening. He also knows that, of course, the quest is being completed next turn, so he doesn't want to have his Primordial Drake isolated. He wants the Armorsmith to be able to maybe soak a hit, and soak a hit it does.
It's pretty darn important. But this turn from Leoric here ended up panning out beautifully because of that Armorsmith. Now he saved 8 points of life. He's got Primordial Drake Execute if he wants that, or he can go once again go wide on board, try to protect that life total, dig for extra cards.
He needs extra cards. He doesn't even have enough taunt minions in his hand at the moment to complete the quest. Still not.
Yeah, these are some tough draws for Leoric. Chakki, meanwhile, his draw density is much higher than Leoric's right now. You know, both those Sleep with the Fishes are gone. There's only 1 copy of Brawl in his deck. Very few dead cards left in the list for Chakki.
Can I get a taunt minion? Oh. I can. All right, 5 out of 7. Has the minions to do it, but still needs a couple turns, and that couple turns is where Chakki's just going to keep pounding on that damage, keep developing.
Yeah, this is really the turn I expect Chakki to kind of turn up the heat as well. Giving another card draw over to Leoric right now doesn't look too damaging, and he needs to start directing that hero power towards face. So if he does something particularly aggressive here to try to get this board cleared down, it wouldn't really surprise me all that much.
Point that damage at the face.
That's right.
Got to put a clock on him.
It's another thing too, is if Leoric is very low on life total, where Chakki's very high on life total, it suddenly becomes difficult for him to even use Sulfuros in that position.
Yeah.
There's simply the danger of dying.
This probably will be the turn where Leoric looks to finishing the quest. He's got double Bloodhoof Brave, which is enough. That'll put him at 7 out of 7. He won't be able to get value out of it this turn, but he'll have a free 10 mana next turn to be able to use that soul for us and start trying to clear off the board a little bit more. But at what cost? Lots of health.
And, or lots of cards, one of those two. That's looking like a good hero power button.
You telling me, bud? Just tap it.
Just tap it.
What now?
It's a little bit better than most hero powers.
Steady shot's pretty good.
Imagine how much better steady shot would be if it dealt 2 random damage, like it could hit a minion. Woo. I think it would be fire hot. Be like die, insect. The 8 damage hero power. Chakki's got right now. This is going to be tough for Leoric to win.
I'd say so.
Chakki's look like he's cooking up a different plan, though. This is how aggressive Chakki's getting in this game. He's going to use execute so that he can once again direct that 8 damage. So Chakki has thought about the way that this game is going to pan out, and if he simply fights for value, Leoric's got plenty of cards in hand. So rather than simply rely on the value battle to try to win, instead he's going to expend his resources right now and add a clock to Leoric. That was really his one turn where he could get multiple significant threats online with the double Bloodhoof Brave. What else is left to really do that? And so Chakki's trying to take advantage of that exact circumstance. I think this is a brilliant play.
We talked about it earlier. Chakki, when we looked at his statistics from high MMR games, so at the top end of Legend, across the Ungoro season, Quest Warrior was his most played deck, his most played archetype. And he had above a 70% win rate with it. People oftentimes associate Chakki with aggressive decks, which is true. He's good at aggressive decks, but his tournament victory, his sole tournament victory at DreamHack Austin in 2016, right after Whispers of the Old Gods, and his off decks, all day long.
Zoth was good.
It was. It's still pretty good.
His preference for aggression doesn't really take away from his ability to pilot these sort of decks. That's really the big thing about it.
Yeah.
You know, Chakki, his fastest finish to Legend in terms of number of games, not necessarily time frame, hashtag aggressive decks, 114 games to Legend. Actually ties Stan Cifka amongst all the competitors for the fastest road to Legend in spring playoffs.
Tied WTY Bill. They're tied for the Americas as well.
Yeah, Stan Cifka also, though.
Yeah, Stan Cifka also, yeah.
114 games.
And WTY Bill. It's kind of interesting, out of the first 2 matches that we watched, Chakki and WTY Bill tied for first, and then Amnesiac is second.
Yeah.
It's fastest passes to Legend. They're also the fastest path to the HCT stream.
And this is, once again, the situation that Chakki was kind of expecting to happen. His resources being expended very aggressively, but Leoric being so low on life total, there's few ways to actually protect himself. And this is where that hero power becomes so much more of a threat to Leoric. He's not able to consistently get through chip damage because that hero power is either going to hit his big minion in play, or it's going to hit him and just kill him outright. And that's where Chakki really turned this match around, I think, was playing as aggressively as he did. And so you see Leoric trying to basically do the same thing, make the most of his resources, but every single time that damage goes into a minion instead of going into Chakki, that gives Chakki another turn to land that lucky shot, if it comes to that.
If Leoric were to swing into the Tar Creeper there, then he would have gotten 8 life, which would have left him 1 hero power away from being dead. So he's forced to sort of use Sleep with the Fishes, which, to be honest, is a tough card to use anyway a lot of the time in this matchup.
Just using mana is really the thing. It's foregoing development.
Yeah, 2 mana is big. Seminole Defender is a reasonable pickup in this situation just because Chakki was light on threats himself. So eventually, if he runs out of stuff, then Leoric's going to be able to go a little bit wider on the board and then isolate Chakki for that hero power.
Honestly, the Infested Tauren's looking pretty solid.
I like
here.
it.
It's 2 bodies.
No, Ornery Direhorn you don't really want because you need to fit in that hero power. I think, oh wow, Public Defender.
A very interesting choice, I'd say. And it was probably because Chakki intended to slam.
That makes sense.
The big key, but Execute is a major pickup for Chakki. Anything to deliver damage to that Tar Creeper and kill it was a big draw, because Leoric on 2 life everything has to go perfect from here for him to win this game.
So now Fire War Axe becomes a pick for Chakki to have potential lethal. A hero power shot to the face at any time isn't lethal.
Leoric's 2 shots away, though.
That's true, yeah. Because of the resources that he was able to gain over the course of those few turns where he wasn't completing the quest.
Wow. Stonehill defenders don't look like much, but in these situations, that card is prime time.
I was gonna say, I think we're pressing the button here. Let's get another public defender.
I'm just looking at the public defender.
Just 2 of them.
I think Tar Creeper's a bit more likely.
He can Tar Creeper, hero power, and public defender.
He could be thinking about Sleep with the Fishes as well. You know, but the public defenders just simply having extra
There
health
it
means
is.
the second Sleep with the Fishes won't be strong enough. And that's a good hit for Chakki as well. The Stonehill defender was the only bad hit
Yeah, I was
for
gonna
Chakki in
say,
this spot.
I see a little bit of a better hit. But you're right.
It's not often you see 4 power and 42 health on board.
Nope. Ooh, Dirty Rat. What does Leoric think that card is? I think he has a read that that's a spell. Hello.
It's not.
No, that's a Primordial Drake. I mean, he's been holding on that card for, what, 8 turns now?
Public defender doing his job. Fiery War Axe looking like it's about to do some jobs as well.
Yeah.
So I'm curious if Chakki wants to simply maximize the percentage to land the hit from the hero power, or if he wants to maximize the chances he hits a relevant threat. And he's going for max lethal.
Basically
from this.
both hits the Dirty Rat. We're getting close. There's always this moment at the end of these Taunt Warrior versus Taunt Warrior games where just one hero power shot to the face away from winning it. You just keep hitting the taunt minion.
Now Leoric's starting to close in, though. I mean, if he lands 2 shots to the face consecutively, that can be enough to close.
But he's got 2 dead cards in his hand, basically, with Fire War Axes. He can't swing with those.
That's definitely true.
Basically.
But Sleep with the Fishes can help clear out some of this board. Leoric's still got a fighting chance here.
I think he's just dead. I think he's just, isn't he just mathematically dead? Even if the hero power hits the Primordial Drake, the Fire War Axe goes into the Tar Creeper, the hero power hits him in the face. He has to Fire War Axe and then Harrison Jones? No, yeah, Fire War Axe Harrison Jones, I think is the only way for him to
Still wouldn't work. It would just be the attack from... This is an interesting played turn. I'm not entirely sure there's a way he could have lived through this. Now that I'm really thinking about it. But yeah, this taking out the Fiery War Axe is important because it means the Tar Creeper has to occupy an attack somewhere.
I believe that's an Acolyte of Pain.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this is basically a lose-lose.
That's a lose.
Yeah.
2 out of the 3 shots ended the game for Chakki there and takes a 2-0 lead over Leoric.
Yeah, better than the 50-50 effectively if he had killed the Tar Creeper first, because whether or not he kills the Tar Creeper or goes face when he leaves it up with the hero power, that's a better chance than killing the Tar Creeper first and going for the 50-50.
That's right.
So, well spotted. You know, you can figure out those little bits of math the longer you play the Quest Warrior. But there's Chakki, 60% career win rate or better with 6 different classes. Now, 60% in Hearthstone may not feel that impressive, but judging by, you know, the average players and judging by the fact that it's career-based, since he started playing Hearthstone, all of his Hearthstone matches, he's like 5% on average above everybody else in the Americas playoffs with every class.
Yeah, except Rogue, Druid, Priest. Those are the 3 that don't meet the 60% threshold.
But Priest, considering most players have around a 50% win rate with Priest, Chakki's at like a 56% win rate. So he's still 5% above the average in the field of some of the top players in the world.
This guy can play.
I was incredibly impressed when I was looking through his stats.
Find ourselves in another mirror match here. Chakki on his last deck with Paladin, and Paladin has really been the biggest shift that we've seen from the European playoffs to the Americas, where players have moved away from Murlocs very heavily into a control Paladin deck, where they're running copies of Doomsayer. They're looking to play the long game with the qualities of Wild Pyromancers, have those giant endgame threats with Ragnaros, with Tyrion, with 2 Primordial Drakes, with Sunkeeper Terran, with the Curator. A lot more than the Murloc decks usually pack. We see those decks take a much lower curve and put much more emphasis on the early game presence that they can build.
Looking at these two guys' decks sort of back-to-back here, Amnesiac and WTY Bill had a very similar matchup where Amnesiac was playing the exact same deck as Chakki, and WTY Bill had a very similar deck to Leoric. It's an Azoth Paladin deck. There's a couple key differences there, though. A Gluttonous Ooze in the deck for Leoric over a Harrison Jones, which is a little bit interesting. I guess he's trying to target aggro a little bit more, because usually that's, you know, it can come down a little bit early in the game. It's also a defensive tool.
Could be an issue of the card draw, too. In those long, grindy matchups, drawing cards can be a liability.
Sure.
Options.
He's also got a copy of Rallying Blade in his deck as well, so definitely nodded a little bit more towards the aggressive side of things in terms of where the defense is concerned. But this matchup, very similar to the one we saw, like you mentioned, with WTY Bill and Amnesiac. Leoric, he has a long-term advantage. As long as he can keep Chakki from gaining serious tempo on him and being able to take advantage of that, it's a situation where he often will end up on the positive side of value. The big thing to note for me, though, is we saw Amnesiac get punished by the Black Knight in WTY's build. That is not in Leoric's deck. And that was a major tool to overcoming the tempo that Amnesiac was building.
We also saw WTY Bill basically close out the game with an Ungoro pack
That's right.
that he got from the Elise that was in his deck. No Elise in this deck.
No siree, Bob.
No siree, Nathan. But just look how Leoric scales up the curve.
Interesting turn to play the Psychotron here for Leoric. One of the major hits he's going to take in this situation is either from Spikeridge Steed or from True Silver Champion here. With that 1/1 token on board, that was a pretty free take for Chakki. Now he's got this 4/5 Hydrologist, and there's not really a strong contest from Leoric in this manner. This is the kind of damage that can really add up for Chakki, where his game plan has to be more aggressively knotted to take care of this situation. And Karen's not doing a good job at contesting this either.
Karen is just sort of that annoying presence on the board that is very hard to remove in its fullest. You can pick apart your smaller creatures, and then, you know, it comes back with Azoth. So it's just a big body that comes back with Azoth.
A lot of getaway Kodos Chakki's picking up, too. This kind of value can help him sustain himself in this game, too. That was a tool we saw often missing from Amnesiac spots, were the getaway Kodos. But
He can get infinite getaway Kodos if he keeps getaway Kodoing his Hydrologist.
that can happen. Those extra 2/2s over time, they will add up.
Yes, sirree, Bob.
Follow the rule.
Leoric's playing these turns awfully fast.
He's whipping through them.
He's got a lot of decisions in front of him.
It's oftentimes a trait that we see from players that, you know, people call those ladder grinders, those open cup grinders, is that they play fast because that's what they're used to. They're used to having to fit a ton of games into a small amount of time. They're used to playing 15, 20 open cups a month to try and get those points to qualify. They're used to jamming out a couple hundred games in the last couple days of the season to try and qualify. So they play very fast because that's sort of where their comfort zone is. But a big game like this, you may lose a couple percentages of games on ladder by playing too quickly and making mistakes.
Yeah.
You're only playing 7 rounds. You're not playing 300 games of ladder.
Every game counts here.
Slow it down. I don't mind.
It makes things exciting.
Makes sense to me.
Chakki playing pretty quick in his own right as well, but not quite as many decisions to make. You know, his hand's got major response tools with equality and Wild Pyromancer. It's got Harrison Jones. It's got a fairly dead card at the moment with Forbidden Healing. I'm curious if this gives anything away to Leoric, or if Chakki maybe is trying to keep this pace so that Leoric continues to play faster.
Yeah.
I know I've spoken with him a lot about pace of play, and he's told me before that when players play fast, he will tend to play fast as well to see if their pace of play increases.
It's like a game of chicken.
He's gonna slow down first. That's when you grab that mental edge.
That's when you rope out a turn, like this.
Now, the combat is a bit more tricky, I'd say. There's some pretty good stuff in Leoric's hand.
Oh, yeah.
The one thing that I'm a little bit concerned with is just the number of weapon charges he has. When he didn't use that True Silver champion early on, I mean, now he's got 2 True Silvers and he's got Tyrion. That is 7 turns to unlock the full value from those cards.
He's also got a Rallying Blade in his deck, which means that he draws that. That's 2 more weapon swings that he needs to worry about.
Now, over the long haul, that's great, but Chakki's game plan is to tempo him out. It's not to win this in a very long, grindy battle. He knows that that's not a very likely possibility with N'Zoth in Leoric's deck.
Stegadon got away on a Kodo.
It's a Kodo right?
That's weird.
Put your faith in the light.
Well, slam the Tyrion. And Leoric, not strong ways to handle this Tyrion. This is going to get some value.
His strongest way to handle this Tyrion is his own Tyrion. And he can isolate it with Redemption on the board.
Put your faith.
I mean, it's a dead giveaway that it's either Redemption or Getaway Kodo in this situation, but, I mean, come on.
Sometimes.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
He's-
either one of them is good.
Either he ignores it and the Tyrion just lives anyway,
Or he kills it.
and the
Tyrion lives anyway.
The Tyrion lives anyway. There is a chance that he could, make the read that that's what it is, and then ignore it, and then force Leoric to basically not play anything. And so then he can try and isolate a different minion for that secret. But I don't know if he can afford to spend that much time, because we talked about it earlier, Leoric does have the long game advantage.
And the other thing to consider too is that Chakki's looking for strong value off of these getaway Kodos. If he's in a position where he has a minion that's isolated on board, what kind of position does that put him in with those getaway Kodos? Suddenly that Wild Pyromancer could come back to hand instead. But Chakki pushes in here, sees Redemption, and that's not what he wanted to see.
No.
He was hoping it was getaway Kodo in this spot.
Yeah, he was like, I'm pushing 6.
But did have a backup plan here.
I'm still pushing 6. Actually, I'm pushing 8. This works out better. Did have to expend a consecration, though. That can be a big deal. But Chakki's, he's on the aggressive path now, and this is sort of what you need to do. You need to stick minions on the board, and you need to try and pressure the slower deck, because you're not going to win in that long game, so you got to find a way to win in the short term.
And my one concern is that Chakki had to expend both Consecration and Wild Pyromancer with this line of play. And so now the equality is in his hand. The big use for equality for him is pushing damage when he takes these aggressive stances. And so because of that, not having an activator leaves any play with Spike Ridge Steed suddenly much more valuable for Leoric than it would have previously.
Yeah. Now, Paladins nowadays do have an additional activator in Primordial Drake for the equality. So equality, essentially became a better card because it's less often stranded in the hand.
Another equality, usually pretty welcome.
I'm looking at that divine strength.
Well,
Small-time recruits, W2I Bill would have loved to have that. He could have pulled the crab from his deck.
I think he still would have taken equality.
Yeah, probably.
Unless he really needed that 3 healing. But that's another Tyrion for Chakki, so the value that Chakki's actually buying from his cards is very significant. Leoric just playing a Wild Pyromancer to get stuff on board. Just trying to threaten. These games have been nuts.
Chakki can afford to draw some cards here.
That's what Harrison's for.
I think so.
Just about this situation.
My opponent has a strong weapon with 2 durability. You know what my hand could use at the moment?
2 extra cards.
2 extra cards.
Ooh, and I get to blow it up. Solid.
Makes sense to me.
Is he selling it to the museum? Is that where he gets those extra cards from?
I don't want to know. Ruins the magic.
Ooh, second-rate bruiser.
Must move quickly.
Interesting as well with the way that the board development is going. So, again, just favoring tempo plays in most spots. Three weapon charges Leoric has not gotten this game. Harrison Jones took out 2. Ashbringer overrode one of the true silver champions. And the second Ashbringer overrode the first Ashbringer, so it's actually 6 charges that he's lost this game of weapons.
Now that's a statistic.
But Tyrion, mind you, Tyrion was redemption into play, so N'Zoth would provide 2 Tyrions at this point.
True. Yeah, that's actually a really good point to bring up.
It's honestly like the magic card that Leoric can draw is put a bunch of Tyrions and Cairn on the board and try to secure the game. With Chakki being low on ways to clear the board post-equality, he has to start pushing. He really doesn't have much of an option.
Yeah. True Silver Champion plus a Spike Ridge Steed can get to this board and leave him with a 3/1 Wild Pyromancer.
Yep.
Oh, actually, he's going to go the other way around.
Yeah, almost sped this up a little bit too fast. So his life total not nearly as big of a concern, I'd say, as it would be in some of the matchups that can provide a lot of burn. But Paladin doesn't have a ton of ways to actually close in situations. It usually has to have a lead to make that happen. So when Leoric's playing very aggressively with his life total here, it just pans out better. It keeps more health on his minions, which is the facet that you need to win the game. If you use all your minion health instead of your own, a lot of times you end up with too few resources to fight against what your opponent's doing.
Yeah, found the play at the end, but
Let me think.
took him a while. Roped it out. Almost looked like he missed the final attack with the weapon into Harrison Jones, which would have been a disaster. His other line of play there would have been to Spike Ridge Steed the 1/1 and then trade over the Harrison Jones with that. So you'd have like a 3/2 and a 3/1 instead of a 5/6.
I think it's much wiser to use the life total in this situation.
Yeah.
That'll force equality, it looks like.
Must move quickly.
Chakki's got a pair of them though.
Out of my jungle.
Don't think he should upset another Stonehill defender.
Stonehill Defender is very strong in Paladin because of the increased ability to grab class-specific cards.
Yeah.
Paladin has a lot of very strong class-specific minions that have taunt, namely Tyrion. But there's also Sunkeeper, and there's also Grime Street Protector, and there's also Wicker Flame Burn Bristle. It's a lot of strong cards you can get from a 3-mana 1/4.
It's true. Kodo's got a few good targets here.
Yeah, I'd say. I'm looking at that centerpiece. Wicker Flame Burn Bristle.
Wicker Cannon Belly Rub.
That was his original name. That didn't quite work out as.
They changed it at the last moment.
Yeah,
Reporting for duty.
his agent recommended.
Something more menacing.
Yeah. Well, now that's a big draw. It's really important for Chakki because now he knows he has a way to push through when he gets aggression rolling. Prior to that, it was just equality, so we'd have to expend minion pressure to get that done. If Leoric plays defensively in a lot of situations now and simply relies on board presence to get it done,
Whoa.
that won't work. I don't mind the equality here either because this allows Chakki to get that second-rate bruiser down he took earlier.
This is basically saying, I have a hard read that you don't have N'Zoth.
Oh, N'Zoth by far would have been played by now. That card is game-ending at the moment. That's
He's also saying, I will lose this game if you draw N'Zoth, but I don't care.
That's not N'Zoth. But Leoric still got plenty of ways to live in these situations. Honestly, the Doomsayer here is looking fantastic.
Yeah.
If you're in Leoric's spot. His one concern would be another Spike Ridge Steed. Maybe a True Silver Champion. But Doomsayer Forbidden Healing is going to put him at a high life total and give him an incredibly high likelihood to clear this board. It's very difficult for Chakki to have a single point of damage in this spot.
Yeah, to put it into perspective, both equalities are gone, both consecrations are gone, and a Wild Pyromancer. So if N'Zoth comes out with 2 Tyrians, a N'Zoth and a Cairn,
Primordial Drake's not a bad play, but we see the equality consecration in Leoric's hand. I mean, it's going to be tough for me to believe he won't have the time
yeah,
to find his offense spot.
he just needs to protect these minions. He's running out of stuff. He can't afford to give Leoric a whole nother turn to find N'Zoth, to find development, anything along those lines. Hydrologist.
Easy turn here for Leoric.
But he's going to hand it over, and it's going to be an easy turn for Chakki.
That's right. Tyrion's a big one, especially when it's the second Tyrion. Leoric's been fighting through the tempo plays from Chakki all game long. That equality consecration a lot of times is going to leave Chakki with very few tools left. But the fact that he's been fighting aggressively with equalities instead of his own minions leaves him with a reload to this board.
Should I?
Repentance makes a lot of sense here. Eye for 9, not really much value, especially since a lot of times you're going to be able to prog it with 1 damage anyway.
That is a lot of gas, but I'm fearing Chakki doesn't have the time to actually get this pressure rolling.
I believe he still has a Stampeding Kodo and a Primordial Drake in his deck. From the Curator.
Yeah, 2 copies of the Kodo.
And 2 copies of Drake, and I think he's used 1 of each so far. I don't think he has a Hydrologist, because I'm pretty sure we've seen about 12 Getaway Kodos this game.
Just about.
Or maybe that was last game.
Yeah, it was
yesterday. I don't even know. They're all blended together now.
It was both Kodos. Another Stonehill Defender is an option, but if you can just chain Stonehill Defenders the rest of the game, maybe you can find some time, but N'Zoth is just going to be too punishing of an effect. And that's one of the reasons that Chakki chooses to take Wickerflame Burn Bristle here instead, is he knows that he's against the clock right now. Every single turn Leoric gets a chance to draw N'Zoth, that could end the game.
But Leoric just not drawing too well at this moment. I mean, really the only good draw I feel like he has left in his deck is the N'Zoth.
Reporting for duty.
It's getting thin.
It is getting really thin. Has he drawn Curator yet? That could be a good one as well.
No Curator thus far, but this is still a lot of board that Leoric's taken. And the Repentance here is making it a bit tough for Chakki as well. You know, he'd love to just simply play a big minion, but suddenly it's threatened if he chooses to do that.
Tyrion is about the safest because the Divine Shield protects it a lot. It basically still trades with both these minions pretty effectively. The 7 health on the Sunkeeper Terran can be
Faith in the light.
blasted over by the Ashbringer charge following turn.
Just right into the Repentance too. No check, and says, it's fine with me. You know, how much more life total can Leoric afford to play with if he knows that Chakki's pushing at him? Because now he's also losing the value battle.
By a lot.
For duty.
Now Leoric's basically saying, I'm the one that needs to go on the aggressive because I'm just out of resources.
Wow. And that damage, it's sticking right now. Chakki's at 6, so defensive plays are in order for a turn or so.
He does have a lot of defensive tools. I mean, pretty much all the defensive tools. He's got Forbidden Healing, Ivory Knight, Wickerflame, Burn Bristle, and Ragnaros Lightlord.
Chakki just drops to 4. I'm sorry, to 3. He's just got a Forbidden Healing for 4 health.
There's not much range in this Paladin deck.
And that is not a strong draw from Leoric. Maybe it gets him back a turn, but
At the very best, heal him for
Kodo.
7. Actually, could heal him for 9.
Chakki can isolate the Doomsayer and land Kodo this turn.
Or he could jam the Ivory Knight, rip Blessing of Kings.
Just go for lethal. Yeah, it would have to be Blessing of Kings as well.
Only Blessing of Kings.
That's pretty darn good. Leoric just stranded with no options for several turns. And Chakki is one draw from being home free in this game. If Leoric draws N'Zoth, he's going to be in a commanding position. If he does not, I believe he's lost the game.
Equality.
Well, that clears the board down.
He's got one more turn. Unless Ivory Knight comes out and he rips the Hammer of Wrath.
That would be a way to do it. Man, you're just spotting all the crazy lines. I have a feeling we're going to see Ragnaros Lightlord instead of that, but Chakki has been known to make pushes like this in these situations where I have a chance to end the game. It's not quite a strong play, but it's strong enough.
Chakki also, yeah, he's just very patient. Oh no. Nah, one off. Unlucky.
It's still the take. And this Doomsayer from Chakki is actually brilliant. This prevents Leoric from having N'Zoth be a defensive draw in this spot.
Checkmate.
There's no way for him to kill it. Wow. Ivory Knight for Hammer of Wrath miss. Doomsayer checkmate.
That's it. No way that Leoric can win. He cannot kill that Doomsayer. And True Silver Champion is coming in hot.
Options.
Wow, that was insane. I didn't even see that. That's crazy.
Leoric's going to go through all the motions, but he's going to realize that his round 1 in the America Spring Playoffs
The menagerie is for guests only.
just ended in a 3-0 sweep.
It's a hard-fought battle, but Chakki just fighting very aggressively with tools that are typically reserved for responsive play put him in a very strong position. He began to command the card advantage battle and soon took over simply through the aggressive pressure he was able to apply with this Control Paladin deck.
Yeah,
Sick.
well done. And Leoric, even though he did have a slightly greedier control lineup, it just wasn't able to get the job done now. That matchup would have been completely different had Leoric in his last 8 or so draws had N'Zoth. It wasn't about, I think, the bottom 6 cards in his deck. So you hate to see that, but Chakki still had a 2-0 lead and had a couple decks left to try and punish that N'Zoth Paladin.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big part of it, too, is when you have these control battles, you do have to draw that key card still. So,
Yeah.
this is really part of the failure rate that comes along with this strategy is, just like any combo deck, if the key cards are in the bottom portion of your deck, sometimes you don't draw them and your deck doesn't perform.
Yeah, but that's it for that match. A nice, controlly slow start to round number 1.